Dastak, as you've heard, and I'm a faculty member here at Asian Studies. I'm joining you today. We are all located currently on UBC's Point Grey campus, and I acknowledge that this place where I both live and work, and where the program in Contemporary Society is homed, is located on the traditional, ancestral. We have a wonderful panel today, and I'd just like to read the names of our panelists before I invite Bhante Sarampala to lead us in 3 refuges and 5 precepts. So, joining us today is the Venerable Bhante Dr. Sarampala from Toronto, as well Dr. Rajratana Ambedkar, coming to us from India, Mr. Harbans Virdi, coming to us from the UK, and Mr. Rajkumar Osoraj, coming to us from Toronto. I got that right. At this time, it is my pleasure to invite Bhante Sarampala to lead us.
Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami.
I'd like to invite Manish, Consul General of India to Vancouver, to say a few words. Manish? Our first question, in whatever order works best for you, what does human emancipation mean to you?
You want me to start? Okay. Okay, thank you, Jessica, for asking that question. And first of all, I would like to express my gratitude to all of you for the organizing committee members of this symposium. I think it should be our duty and responsibility to come together to celebrate the life of Dr. Ambedkar and to honor him for his service to the humanity. I think this is very important to keep in mind. So now, when we talk about the emancipation, this English word, emancipation, is maybe it's a translation of Pali word called vimutti and Sanskrit word vimukti, or simple way to call it moksha in Pali, or Sanskrit moksha. I think that's the word that most people know, moksha. So, in ancient India, the Shramanas were interested in this concept. And then the Buddha picked up that word. And what Buddha basically did was, at that time, he gave a new definition to all these words. It could be nirvana, moksha, karma, dharma, you name it. He gave new definitions, rational, to make people understand what it really means. So this emancipation can be understood in several ways. When we look into this word emancipation, that is the moksha or vimukti or moksha or vimutti, that is to gain emancipation, liberation from this cycle of life known as the samsara. Why? Because the samsara has a problem. And if we look into the Western a branch of Western philosophy, non-existentialism, and this is, there is an existential problem. The Buddha identified in the 6th century BCE, and that existential problem is known in Buddhist philosophy as dukkha, or which has been translated into English today as suffering. But what it means, so the Buddha taught a way how to gain or liberation from this cycle of life, which is full of problems, full of sufferings, pains, and all these negativities. And that emancipation, in the true sense of Buddhist philosophy, known as nirvana or nibbana, is emancipation or liberation or the complete freedom from suffering or the human suffering. So when we talk about the human emancipation, so that is the complete liberation from human suffering is what we call emancipation or moksha or nirvana. And in socially looking into all this, and of course, social beings in every cultural background, in every social background, there are a lot of problems. Maybe inequalities, not having the equal opportunities, not having the privileges, how people are being marginalized by certain group of or elements of the society. And so then there would be a person who would observe all this and say, this is not right. We all should be treated equally. So Dr. Ambedkar saw that problem. He said, I have to create a voice for these people. I need to emancipate these people. I need to liberate these people. So then he raised a strong voice which people could not reject. Okay? They could not reject this. And that was very powerful. And then there were a lot of people, those who were subject to inequalities, all these suppressions, they found refuge in him. Dr. Ambedkar was the shelter, refuge for them. So they found a huge relief. We have somebody who is speaking for us. And in that way, we can see that is also human emancipation, a person who dedicated his life to liberate millions of people and who are still being liberated every year. Those who go to the Diksha Bhumi and take refuge and observe 5 precepts, and they follow that path. So that is also my way of understanding human emancipation.
Namo Buddhaya, Jai Bhim. Human emancipation in the context of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. It brings to my mind that if we talk of human emancipation, that man should not be controlled by another man, or a group of people should not be controlled by another group of people. When in India the fight for freedom was going on, the main motto of the fight, main message of the fight for independence was that one country should not be controlled by another country. That was the main reason to fight for the freedom of India. Babasaheb Ambedkar's movement was much longer and much larger from the fight for the independence. Babasaheb movement was that if your message is that one country should not be controlled by another country, our fight is that one group of people should not be controlled by another group of people. And that was the main struggle of Babasaheb Ambedkar's life. And Baba Sahib Ambedkar, when he wrote Annihilation of Caste, in that his speech, his book, that undelivered speech, Baba Sahib mentioned that caste is the basis for the control of a human being. So he guided that human emancipation, for human emancipation, we need to destroy the caste system from India. The first thing we have to do is to destroy the caste system. Because of this caste system, humans are getting slaves by another group of people. And he tried a lot to destroy the caste system from the, Baba Sahib Ambedkar was born as a Hindu. So he wanted that Hindu community should be casteless, but it was not possible. So when he saw that it is not possible to destroy caste system, so he left that religion and he embraced Buddhism, where presence of caste is not there. So human emancipation in the view of Baba Sahib Ambedkar was that he wanted to build such a society where everyone should be equal, where everyone should be treated as equal, and even he has told that cultivation of mind should be the ultimate aim of human existence. So in my view, human emancipation is that one group of people or one man should not be controlled by another group of people. That's my thinking. Thank you.
Just keep it here.
Thank you very much. First of all, I thank the organizer to organize this event. For me to come all the way from London and say part of my views to all of you. Now, emancipation of human, to me, it's a very difficult subject because there are so many different angles. But we will talk for our own emancipation. We were born in India. We can go long, long back. So Baba Sahib worked very hard all his life for our emancipation. Now, when I was walking into the university, I saw the statue of Rabindranath Tagore, who was the first Indian for the Nobel Peace Prize. I remember his lines. In his poetry, he says, "Bring back golden days of the Buddha." I don't know the full poem, but in this one line, he has said a lot. That means the Buddha's time, the Buddha's ruling was a golden time. And he's telling to bring it back, which is a true emancipation for humankind. Other teachings, they will say to depend on the superpower, but Buddha said up vipo bhava. So we have to be our own master. Where others tell that you go into their sharan and all your problems will be eliminated. But Buddha says, I can tell you the path, but you have to walk to the destiny. That means every problem in our life, there is no superpower going to come to this earth and going to work for us. We have to do it. To emancipation, especially for the culture we are born in, which we suffered in our childhood, and we see still people suffering. So we need teaching which will give us self-confidence, not to depend on somebody else to come and solve our problem. And that, many people say, after 21 years, that was Baba Sahib declared that I'm going to do this. But he was studying for the emancipation from the age of 16 when he passed the 10th standard by his teacher. The book was given on the life of the Buddha. He studied that. He was 16. So when he embraced Buddhism, he was 65. So Baba Sahib studied 50 years for our emancipation, especially the people in India, according to the Varna Vyavastha, they are born from the feet. Then next one comes caste system, they are the low caste. Then another item comes, that is untouchability. So to annihilate all that, only the path shown by Baba Sahib Dr. Ambedkar and path shown by the Buddha can happen, not any other. Thank you.
Thank you. Namo Buddhaya, Jai Bhim to all. Thanks to the organizing committees for this program. For me, this is the first time kind of program I'm participating. That doesn't say that I have not participated in the programs or this setup of programs with a different audience in India and also in Toronto. To me, the emancipation, when India was struggling before 1947 for their freedom from British Empire, at that point, all the leaders of that time, I don't want to name any one of them, but they were asking for freedom from British Empire. And Dr. Ambedkar was also at the same time struggling to emancipate his people. And he had asked a question to the leaders of India at the time who were asking for freedom for their country. They said, you are looking for freedom for the country. And my people are also the citizen of this country. They are the countrymen. Have you thought anything to give them the freedom? Once you get the freedom from British, do you have any plan? Because you have taken the freedom from my people as well. Do you have any plans to give them the freedom? So it has been going on in Dr. Ambedkar's mind from the beginning. Buddha's point of view, if you look at Buddhism, emancipation, it is universal from the Buddha's message. When we look at Panchshila, there are 5 things that are for a common man who lives in the society. If you follow those 5, Buddha thinks you can have a better life. And that Panchshila was given at that time. And whoever was following, they were emancipating from all those things you think you've been doing it prior to do that. So Panchshila was part of that. When Dr. Ambedkar embraced Buddhism back in 1956, he didn't think the Panchshila was enough for people to embrace Buddhism for their emancipation. So he added 12 vows his own. 22. 22, and out of those 22, 5 were Panchshila, and the rest of the one added to that by Dr. Ambedkar. So if you read that after embracing Buddhism, you follow that, there is emancipation you're looking at, you can get that too. So that's all I want to say at this point, emancipation from growth point of views, from Dr. Ambedkar and Buddha and the Lord Buddha. Thank you.
Thank you all. In our next question, I want to turn to the book, the 600-page magnum opus that was published posthumously in 1957 after Dr. Ambedkar had passed away, and represents that 50 years of study of Buddhism, of Pali scriptures, of available materials in Sanskrit and other languages. He wrote an incredible treatise, a modern Buddhism that was adapted to this time and this place. So the question is about this book and about your encounters with it. Do you have a strong memory of when you first encountered Dr. Ambedkar's Buddha and his Dhamma, or perhaps a memory of a time that something about that tremendous book struck you? Could be a conversation, could be something you read, could be the first time that you realized that this book, what it represented.
Well, when I was studying in Sri Lanka, in our monastic college, um, one of our teachers was talking about some books. There was a very famous monk, the Venerable Narada Mahathera, who authored a book called The Buddha and His Teachings. And so that book was written, first published in 1946 or 47. Okay? And then he also talked about the book by Dr. Ambedkar, The Buddha and His Dhamma. So maybe the title has been changed into like the first one, The Buddha and His Teachings, and here, The Buddha and His Dhamma. So Dhamma means teachings. So that was the first time I heard about this book. And so in that book, we were talking about the life story of the Buddha and his key teachings, and especially the comparison that he made, like, where the Sangha. Why Sangha, the special monastic community, had been established by the Buddha, that is to give emancipation to the people from all walks of life. And there, in the Buddha and his Dhamma, Dr. Ambedkar gives this simile. The Sangha is like the ocean. The Sangha, the community, is the ocean, and the people, the members of the Sangha, are the rivers. So the rivers could have different identities, right? Yamuna River, Ganga River, or you name it. Like even Canada, we have different rivers. But when all, let's take that Niagara Falls. So all this huge volume of waters are being brought to that river through from all the small creeks and other small rivers. And then those waters end up in Lake Ontario. Right? So, and all these rivers end up in the ocean. So when the rivers end up in the ocean, then the rivers lose the name, the identity. Now it is called the ocean. So I found this analogy very powerful, and I still remember. Even Buddha also said the same thing, and that though you belong to this particular class, that particular class, it doesn't really matter high class or low class. These classes, these caste systems are irrelevant to me, and I just want to emancipate, liberate people through this community called the Sangha. So let's say when I become a monk, although people call me like, that in your introduction said I was born in Bangladesh, then I grew up in Sri Lanka, now, but I'm just a monk, follower of the Buddha. And all monks are highly respected. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what kind of education background you have. Socially, though you have some kind of more respect, but in reality, we all are one. So this is the teaching that from the Buddha and his Dhamma by Dr. Ambedkar, I vividly remember being talked about when our teacher in the monastic college gave us the lessons.
I still remember when I cleared my higher secondary studies, my father gave me The Buddha and His Dhamma. He inspired me to read this book. At that age, I think I'm 18 or 19, I was not getting the message which was written by Baba Saheb Ambedkar, because that my state of mind was not that much acceptable to what Baba Saheb Ambedkar has written. After completing my higher studies, when my father told me that you have to choose Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar as your PhD thesis for any topic you have to choose from Baba Saheb Ambedkar's movement. So when I started doing my PhD, my thesis on Baba Saheb Ambedkar, I got all his books. Gone through from Annihilation of Caste, what Congress and Gandhi have done to the untouchables, castes in India. And when I moved to the Buddha and His Dhamma, my first impression was that whatever movement Baba Saheb Ambedkar did in his whole life, the Buddha and His Dhamma is the conclusion of Baba Saheb Ambedkar's movement. Because from 1917 till 1956, whatever phases he from Bahishkritit Karnisva, Depressed Classes Mission, Scheduled Caste Federation, Indian Labour Party, Republican Party of India, Baba Saheb gave the message that this system, the Brahminical system, will not give you the rights. So you have to come out from that fold, from that Hindu fold. You have to come out. And when you enter this Buddhist fold, you have to understand the basic teachings of Buddha. Without understanding the basic teachings of Buddha, you cannot enter into a new fold. So the whole Buddha and His Dhamma, it is purely based on scientific teachings of Buddha and moral teachings of Buddha. Baba Saheb Ambedkar, it is the widely researched document of Baba Saheb Ambedkar's life. The Constitution of India was written in 2 years, 11 months and 18 days. But the Buddha and His Dhamma, Baba Saheb Ambedkar took 5.5 years to write this book. Even at his last breath, he was not making his will. He was writing the preface of Buddha and His Dhamma. He was worried that after me, my people should follow Buddhism on right track and right path. And Buddha and His Dhamma, not only Baba Saheb Ambedkar's followers, the whole India, and not only India, every Buddhist country must read Buddha and His Dhamma from the perspective of Baba Saheb Ambedkar. What Buddhism, what social message Buddha has given. Because what in the year 1954, when Baba Saheb Ambedkar at the conference of World Fellowship of Buddhists, he emphasized that Buddha has not only taught meditation, Abhidhamma or Tripitaka, what we have given. Buddha has also given social message. Buddha has also given message based on morality. So what is the message of social justice? What is the message of morality? That answer is the Buddha and His Dhamma. So each and every Indian, to get rid of caste system, to get rid of all the doctrines, must read Buddha and His Dhamma and follow Buddha and His Dhamma. It is purely based on mindfulness and purely based on social justice, fraternity, equality and justice. So my impression of Buddha and His Dhamma is that this is the conclusion of Baba Saheb Ambedkar's movement. Without embracing or without understanding Buddhism, you even cannot get organized also. Baba Saheb Ambedkar gave his message that we have to get educated, we have to agitate and to organize. To because we are struggling in India to get organized. And we are not getting organized because we lack Dhamma in ourselves. We lack Dhamma, we lack the teachings of Buddha, and to get organized, we should follow Buddha and his Dhamma, the teachings which Buddha has given. Thank you.
Thank you. Now you asked me what was my impression when I read Buddha and Dhamma. Like my friend Dr. Rajaratan, I was 22 when I started reading Buddha and Dhamma. Because it was new to me and it was too much for me. But I remember only 3 things from here. Because when I used to listen to the other Dhamma teachers or religious teachers, they always said, I am son of God, or last messenger of God, or this and that, where Buddha never claimed anything like that. So I remember when I was reading, it says, don't believe anything because it's written in the books from thousand years, which I like because people believe what is written there. So don't believe anything because majority of the people are saying it. And don't believe because a great scholar, well-known personality said it. The Buddha said, you think with your own mind. If you think it is right, then accept it. That really touched me, that I am free to think with my own mind. I will not have a pressure from others that I should be that. And that was very touching for me. And the second one was, when I was in the school in India, they always used, because they don't teach much, especially my day, they was not teaching much Buddhism, only 1 page or 2. And they used to say, because of Buddhism, India was enslaved. Now when I read Buddha and Dhamma, in that the Buddha said clearly, not Baba Sahib, Buddha said clearly, oh bhikkhus, if there is a problem, don't sit like wet cat. In Hindi it says wet cat. Get up and face the problem. Now how could such a religion become a slave to anybody? Where Buddha said, you get up and fight, face the problem, not to accept it. If somebody slapped you on one cheek and you turn the other. Buddha never said that. So we face the reality and we fight for it. The most which touched me, he was reading in the books that when Siddhartha was 29, he saw one dead man, one sick man, one beggar. But the question Baba Sahib raised in that book, I remember when I was 9-year-old, my father went back from England. He came when I was 2, so I don't remember anything. But when my father went back, because in this cold weather, his cheeks was like tomato red, very thick hair. But when I was 20, he was wearing thick glasses. All his hair was gone. So I don't need to go outside to see old man or sick man. My own father got an old man in front of me. So which Baba Sahib raised a point in that. No, it was a river Rohini, and to distribute the water, there was a fight between 2 clans, Shakya and Godi. So that was something very surprising and new to me, and it was very touching, these 3 points in Buddha and Dhamma. Thank you.
Buddha and his Dhamma, when I read first time, I'd like to share with you that before reading that book, I had lots of questions, probably from my childhood. Those were very common, and always will get different answers to those. And when I read this book, those questions were, to my surprise, were addressed in this book. And those ones were about soul, God, rebirth, and all this. When I was discussing with others, they will give me different versions of that. what is soul, how does it work, and who is God, what does he do, rebirth, how does it happen, reincarnation, how it happens. But those ones are very, very basic questions explained very well by Dr. Ambedkar in this book, which does make sense, and logically you understand this is how it can happen. He has not used any supernatural powers to explain this very everyday life a person can understand easily. And this book is called, in the Buddhist world, in India at least, it's called as Tripitaka, mini Tripitaka. Tripitaka has almost like more than 34 volumes itself in Buddhism. And Baba Sahib has acknowledged, and many times he has mentioned that the literature is too much, we have to bring it together for people. 30 to 35 volumes, it's not easy for them to read it or understand that. So knowing that, Baba Sahib put together the Buddha and his Dhamma book. And to me, second thing I noticed in this book is that there's very good reference to Tripitaka. Lots of sutras are mentioned in there from the Tripitaka. Not on everyday life only, but religious part of that, the Buddhism scriptures, Tripitaka is mentioned in there very well as well. Some of the groups or some people will think once I know everything from Buddha and his Dhamma, I have to be clear here, and I have mentioned that before in other places as well. Buddha and his Dhamma is a very, very good book, very good information in it. But when it comes to the religion, Buddhism, you have to read more from Tripitaka as well. Because you cannot imagine in 500-600 pages, book can cover 35 volumes of the Tripitaka. So yes, it is good start, learn that, and there's more to learn from there too. I agree with Dr. Rajratan when he's saying this is the classic work of Baba Sahib Ambedkar, and this is the end result of his moment, basically. To me, Baba Sahib, when he was struggling all his life for equality, justice, and fraternity, which he did not get from others, so he made up his mind, and he did say that in many places in his writings that I could not change them. I cannot change them. The emancipation of my people is only if they leave that fold and come back to Buddhism and embrace Buddhism. And he practically did it in 1956. So I think that's what he did for the emancipation. I'd like to bring it back to the topic that we are working on. So his motive for the life, he was to emancipate other people, and he did it. And how he did it, he also provided the Buddha and his Dhamma at that time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's a wonderful segue for this next question. I'd like to read a passage from Buddha and his Dhamma, which resonates with some of the answers that we've already heard today. He was speaking about all the different ways in which people understand Buddhism. So I'm going to quote him at length. What are the teachings of the Buddha? A question on which no two followers of the Buddha or students of Buddhism agree. To some, samadhi is his principal teaching. To some it is vipassana. To some, Buddhism is esoteric. To some, exoteric. To some, it is a system of barren metaphysics. To some, it is sheer mysticism. To some, it is a selfish abstraction from the world. To some, it is a systematic repression of every impulse and emotion of the heart. Many other views regarding Buddhism could be collected. The divergence is astonishing. Some of these views are those of men who have a fancy for certain things, such as those who regard the essence of Buddhism lying in samadhi or vipassana, or esotericism. The other views are the results of the fact that the majority of the writers on Buddhism are students of ancient Buddhist history. Their study of Buddhism is incidental and occasional. Some of them are not even really students of Buddhism at all. They're not students of anthropology that deals with the growth and the origin of religion. The question that arises is this: did the Buddha have no social message? When pressed for an answer, students of Buddhism rely on the 2 points. They say the Buddhism taught ahimsa, the Buddhism taught peace. Asked, Did the Buddha give any other social message? Did the Buddha teach justice? Did the Buddha teach love? Did the Buddha teach liberty? Did the Buddha teach equality? Did the Buddha teach fraternity? Could the Buddha answer Karl Marx? These questions are hardly ever raised in discussing the Buddha's Dhamma. But my answer is that the Buddha had a social message. He answers all these questions, but they have been buried by modern authors. So a clear, strong statement from Dr. Ambedkar that Buddhism is social, that it has a social message, and that it can engage with the social, political, and complicated understandings of ideology in our time here and now. I'd love to turn this open to our panelists for their responses to what I find to be one of the most powerful passages in this work.
Well, definitely. Buddha had a social message. There's no doubt about it. Buddha himself worked hard to find the right social message. First, he experimented the message by himself. And he realized the social message that I have maybe rediscovered. This message had been there even before him. Like, in Buddhist tradition, we talked about 28 past Buddhas. And this social message was taught by all the Buddhas, but it has been lost. But the current historical Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, rediscovered it. And then he went to the first group of the 5 ascetics. It was very hard for him to convince him. If you read the sutra, in the Vinaya Pitaka, now those 5 ascetics were practicing the asceticism, severe ascetic practice, austerity with him, because they believed the liberation, nirvana, is possible only by practicing this severe ascetic practice. Buddha tried it, but it didn't lead him to what he was looking for. So he gave up that practice, and he adopted a new path. When Buddha abandoned that prevalent practice, austerity practice, those 5 ascetics left him. He can't become a Buddha. So if he doesn't practice this, how is he going to become the Buddha? So they left him. And then the Buddha did not worry about it. And he continued his practice, continued to find different steps. Eventually, it's the middle path, known as Majjhima Patipada, that worked for him, which led him to become the Buddha, to rediscover this social message. That message, social message, is what is known in the teachings of the Buddha as Majjhima Patipada, middle way, middle path. And then he went to, he was thinking, the path I have rediscovered is very hard to follow. It's very difficult to follow. Normal people can understand this. And so who can understand this? Okay, I had two teachers when I was searching for the path to Nirvana, but they are dead and gone. Now, who can understand this message? Then he thought, oh, I had this group of 5 ascetics. They might understand this, but they were living in somewhere else, Varanasi, Saranath. So the Buddha went to them, and they had this kind of conversation. Look, Siddhartha is coming to us now. Now, we don't need to get up and show our respect. And then they said, we don't need to provide him water. We don't need to make any seat. We don't need to pay any respect. So although they had that conversation, when Buddha came closer, they could not stick to what they talked about. so they eventually, anyway, it's a long story. To make it short, he was able to convince them. He said, now I found the message. Believe me, I have become Buddha. This is the path that led me to become the Buddha. So it was the first disciple, Anya Kondanya, who understood, who became the first enlightened disciple of the Buddha. After delivering the first sermon, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, and then after delivering the second discourse, Anatta Lakkana Sutta, discourse on the 3 forms of existence, and then others also became enlightened. So now, after the 5 ascetics who became the Buddha's enlightened disciples, then there were others who, 60 of them, became the disciples of the Buddha. They observed the first Vassa for 3 months. At the end of it, the Buddha gave an advice to these monks. It is a very famous saying. It's called Charata Bhikkhave Charikang Bahujana Hitaya Bahujana Sukhaya Attaya Hitaya Deva Manussanam. He said, monks, go out, wander, travel, for the greater benefit of all mankind, for everyone. Then Buddha said, don't go 2 of you in the same way. Go alone in different directions with this message. And this message, actually, when the disciples shared with others, the purpose of the disciples, the bhikkhus, is to go around and to share the message and to help them become liberated. And because the Buddha had this social message which was able to transform the human beings, and through this message, he was able to bring not only personal liberation, emancipation, also the social harmony. So I strongly believe Dr. Ambedkar fell in love with that story. And that's why, he embraced this message, this dharma. This is strong social message. And that social message has been transmitted to a lot of people in India during his time, even now, through this famous book, The Buddha and His Dhamma.
See, why it is a topic of research, why Baba Sahib felt necessary, or why Baba Sahib emphasized the social message of Buddha to the Indians. See, in India, like we are sitting in Canada, we will find Canadians in Canada. We will find Africans in Africa. we will find Americans in America, but you will not find Indians in India. You will find Hindus, Muslims, Chamas, Jaidos, and many on in India. We will not find Indians in India. So Baba Sahib felt the need that to abolish the caste system, to bring all Indians on equal length, we need social message of Buddha to the Indians. We need the social message of Buddha. And so that's why I want to read one paragraph from Buddha and his Dhamma, where Sir told that when Shakya and Koliyas were fighting for water, and Siddhartha, he left his house and he became a parivrajak. The last stanza of Buddha and his Dhamma of part 1, the news brought by the 5 parivrajaks that the Koliyas and Shakyas had made peace made Gautama very uneasy. Left alone, he began to reflect on his own position and to make sure if any reason was left for him to continue his parivraj. He had left his people for what? He asked himself. He had left his home because he was opposed to war. Now that the war is over, is there any problem left to me? Does my problem end because war has ended? On a deep reflection, he thought, not. The problem of war is essentially a problem of conflict. It is only a part of a larger problem. The conflict is going on not only between kings and nations, but between nobles and Brahmins, between householders, between mother and son, between son and mother, between father and son, between sister and brother, between companion and companion. The conflict between nations is occasional, but the conflict between classes is constant and perpetual. It is this which is the root of all sorrow and suffering in the world. True, I left home on account of war, but I cannot go back home. Although the war between Shakya and Koliya has ended, I see now that my problem has become wider. I have to find a solution for this problem of social conflict. How far do the old established philosophies offer solution for this problem? Can he accept any of the social philosophies? Baba Sahib Ambedkar has raised this question. Can Buddha accept any of the social philosophies? He was determined to examine everything for himself. So, Baba Sahib Ambedkar emphasized social message which Buddha found for himself, and he gave to the Baba Sahib Ambedkar gave Buddha's social message to Indians, so that Indians should embrace Buddha's social message. Whatever conflict is going on in India between classes and classes, between caste and caste, only the social message of Buddha will destroy this conflict which is going on in India. India, likewise you said, India was a golden country at the time, at the era of Samrat Ashoka. Samrat Ashoka and till the 10 kings who ruled India, it was the golden days which India saw. And in this era, the caste system was fully destroyed. Fully destroyed. The social message of Buddha was implicated, it was established in India. And when the social message of Buddha was accepted by Indians, it was the golden era of India. And now we are seeing GDP of India in minus category. We are seeing unemployment, we are seeing rapes, we are seeing corruptions. It is only because the social message of Buddha is lost from the country where Buddha has given his message. That's right. Thank you.
Again, now the Samadhi, I mean, in India, the reason Buddhism is coming popular, those people who was suppressed from so long with the message of Baba Sahib, to eradicate the caste system. They are coming into Buddhism, back to their forefathers' Dhamma. But in the Western world, they don't have caste problem. So why the Western people are coming so attractive to Buddhism? To my mind, it is only meditation. Because the Western world is running so fast, so many problems, and there is only one way to eradicate that meditation. So meditation is most important. It's not lost, it is coming back again in the Western world more than the Asian countries. Now, regarding the social, I think Buddha was a great social revivalist. I will only say one story. This caste system at Buddha's time, Buddha was coming with the bhikkhus, and there was a sweeper, Sunit. When he saw Buddha with his bhikkhus, he hid behind his trolley, whatever you want to call. So Buddha noticed that. But when he came near him, and he said, Sunit, why you hide? He said, I am low caste, I am doing dirty work. How can I come in front of you? And Buddha said to him, no, you are same as all other human beings. Would you like to join the Sangha? Now it was very big surprise from him, where people were hating him for doing dirty work, where Buddha said to him, would you like to join the Dhamma? You want to become a bhikkhu? So he did. That was a great social revolution. It's a time. And the second incident, if there is any murderer or a rapist, the easy way is to kill him or send him to jail for the rest of his life. But you heard the story of Ambedkar, who killed 999 people. But Buddha never said this man cannot come on the right path, kill him. No. Buddha made him bhikkhu, and he became an arhat. So this is how this social revolution by Buddha was. But other teachers will say, no, kill him, and that is the only one way to finish. So the Buddhism was a great social revival. Now Baba Sahib, when he used the term of liberty, equality, fraternity and justice, Baba Sahib said clearly, I did not take these from the French Revolution, I took it from my master Buddha. So these three are very important. If I start elaborating, you need hours. Liberty don't mean to say that you go on the road like in India, dance and spit where you. No, liberty means to think with your mind, freely, scientifically. That is the meaning of the liberty. And that's given by the Buddha, as Baba Sahib said. Equality. Now, we have said before, the Buddha is giving equality to everyone. You read the books. And then fraternity, Paichara. Now we can see, like Baba Sahib said, Indians is not a nation. It is a horrible gathering of the people. As my brother said, that there are caste amongst caste. But Baba Sahib's mission, the Buddha's mission, is to get everybody united, brotherhood. There is no such a thing as brotherhood in India. It can only be created by the message of Baba Sahib and Buddha. One thing I want to point out, which Rajaratan said, now we ruled not only 10 kings from Chandragupta Maurya to Brahadrat. Our last Buddhist emperor died in 647. So if you calculate from the Chandragupta Maurya to 647, it's nearly 1,000 years. So we ruled India for 1,000 years. And at that time, it was 18 universities in Jambu. My Britain, where I am living, they didn't know what is the meaning of school. And we had the universities. And it was known as a golden sparrow. India remained on the map, well, I should say Jambu. Jambu remained biggest on the map, the ruling of the Buddhist kings, King Ashoka. After that, especially the Harshvardhan, who was the last emperor, India is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So we are very proud that India was a great, big, united country during our rule. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I belong to Punjab. I was born there, I was brought up there, I went to college, university there. And today I am involved in Buddhism, Biharas in Punjab and other states of India. Punjab to me is a state where Sikhism is the religion that's in majority. It is almost like 70% of the state is Sikhs. And there are other religions as well in the same state. I'm using this example because I'm from there and most of my audience knows about Punjab. And all Indians know about Punjab as well. So that's why I'm using that example. In there, we are working on bringing back the Buddhism for many, many years. And we must have heard stories about conflict somewhere here or there in the state or in the country. In Punjab, I have not noticed a single conflict when we wanted to talk about Buddhism there. All other religions are very, very tolerant in Punjab, and nobody has ever come across as stopping the preaching of a Buddha. The preaching of Buddha is not only for Buddhists. I'm coming back to the question later. It is not only for one category of people, one group of people, one class of people. It is universal when we look at that. Buddhism is social, but yes, why this question coming up is there could be reasons for that. One reason could be when I started studying Buddhism, people were used to tell me that you can't really understand it. It's not easy. It's very difficult. It's very technical, and it's a lot of information about in the religious books. It's not easy to understand. It's the religion for monks only. It's the religion for well-learned, highly educated people. They can only understand. But that's not true. This religion is for everyday person. It is for everybody. And when we talk about the society, social, Buddha hasn't talked about anything other than the society. When he says Bhojan Hitaye, Bhojan Sukhaye, that term means it is for everybody, not only for one group of people. And everywhere we live in Canada, and any country in the world, they have administration, they have police, they have jails, they have courts, because there is a crime. Anywhere you go, it is there. It depends on the size of that, how big it is, how small it is, what type of it is, could be different. But when we come back to the Buddhism, and Buddha has taught in his preaching under Eightfold Path, one of them it is that you should do the right thing for your living. And it comes down to do not do a job which is something promoting the crime in the society. Try not to do that. For example, don't work somewhere that is against the society, like drugs, arms, some other type of things that can harm the society. Buddha said, go earn your living with somewhere you can do it honestly. You can earn your living with peaceful mind, and you don't have to get involved in those things. But I was thinking that Buddha is thinking from the beginning. And here when we take the criminal to the court, take the criminal, police goes and hunts him down, that's the end of the crime. Buddha has talked about that in the beginning of that. Don't even let it happen in the beginning. So it is for the society, not for anybody else. And Buddha has said also, Dhamma, my Dhamma is like a fragrance of the flower. A flower does not stop its fragrance from going in any direction, it goes in all directions. My Dhamma will go in all directions as well. So that means it covers the society. Coming back to that, is Buddhism is social? Yes, it is social. And one example about non-violence, my friend used that already. I will expand on that. Angulimala was the criminal person at that time, at Buddha's time, and people said he's a very violent person and he should be stopped. Keep killing people. So Buddha planned to go there and he said, okay, I will go meet him. And scriptures tell that Buddha went there and people were saying that he will kill you on the very first sight, so don't go close to him. Buddha goes there and he sees somebody is coming. And he tells Buddha, stop there. That was his wording, stop there. Buddha stopped and he answered back to him. He said, yes, I am stopped. When are you going to stop? And he was amazed at Buddha's response that he's talking about my crime and he's already telling me. And then he said, he did not say anything and he wanted to talk to Buddha. And Buddha said second thing to him, there's a tree around here everywhere you live. Go break one branch of the tree and bring it over to me. He did small branch, he broke it from the tree, brought it back. And he said, okay, now go back and put it back on the tree. How can he do that? He couldn't do it. But he understood the message of the Buddha. The people you are killing, you can never bring them back. This is the crime you are doing. So you better stop it. So he was stopped and he turned into a bhikshu and he went to the towns around there for begging, and people used to throw stones at him, but he never said anything. And he's in the history of the Buddhism as a Arhat monk. So that is the society of Buddha implemented non-violence in the society as well. So it is social, it is for everybody, it's for universal society, not only for one country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It is my unenviable duty to wrap up and to bring our panel discussion to a close. Please join me in thanking our wonderful panelists who shared their wisdom with us and their experiences and their knowledge of Dr. Ambedkar.